Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at Hebrew root words. First, a bit on Hebrew parts of speech. You have nominals, these are nouns, pronouns, adjectives. They either do or receive the action. These are things. Next, you have verbals like verbs, but then infinitives, that's sort of a verbal noun. Like we say, he ran, that's the verb to run, um, or the running thing. That's a participle, so notice a verbal adjective. And they describe the action. Verbs carry the action. And then finally, we have function words. We're going to be seeing these just a bit later in these lessons. Articles, that's like the word the, conjunctions or connecting, like we say and or but, prepositions, and then adverbs. And these are all what we could call the matchmakers. They connect the nouns and the verbs, and we'll see how that all works out together. All right, the normal direction in English, we would say God created the earth, and we can change this, especially it gets changed in poetry or when we're listening to Yoda, if you're a Star Wars fan. But normally, just in everyday speech, we have the subject first, then the verb, then the direct object of what the verb is acting on. So notice God created the earth. We can change that. We can say the earth was created by God, if we're trying to emphasize something. But normally, most normally, we would go subject, verb, object. Now, in Hebrew, first of all, remember Hebrew is going from right to left, but the order is also different. Normally, and you can change this, and especially you change this for poetry, but sometimes just in regular speech as well. But normally we go verb, subject, object. Notice bara Elohim et haaretz, and we're saying the same thing. It still means God created the earth, but we put the verb first. Bara is the word to create, and then Elohim, the one who's doing the creating, and then what he is creating. And we'll look at that sign of the direct object as to show and help make a difference, because you can place the subject and the object. You can reverse these. But when you do that, you need to make it clear what's being the subject and what's being the object, and there's a little marker that we use. Now, most Hebrew words are built from trilateral roots. For example, um, lakach is the root word, but it just means he takes. Um, and so the root word is generally the third person masculine singular, which this is. He's one person's doing it. It's a masculine. Lachak. Notice we can go. Lechak is learning or teaching. We have mekoch, would be booty or prey, something that is taken rather forcefully usually. We have mekochakim, tongs. These are taking utensils. You use them to maybe pick up something from the burning coals or something like that. Or you have mekach, or mikach would be taking a bribe. Now, Hebrew nouns are divided into three classes. We have primitive nouns, very earliest words. We have the fact that most nouns have been derived from verbs. And so we're going to see quite a connection where if you learn the verb and you see the related noun, you're actually, in your vocabulary, you're learning two words for the price of one. And then some nouns are derived from other nouns. Let's look at some examples. Notice we have lechak, to be in accordance with, and then melach, messenger. And you can see how we just put a mem in front of that to change it from a verb to a noun. Same thing happens with the word arise, kum. And makom is a place where you arose, and maybe it's the place where from which you arose, or it's the place where you arose and went to. But notice they are both sort of location ideas. And then shafat is the word to judge. That's the verb. And then mishpat would be a judgment. And so again, you see how related the verb and the noun is. The mem prefix often changes the verb into a noun. We just saw that with shafat is the word to judge, and then mishpat is a judgment. Um, And so, again, if you can remember one, you're going to sort of be able to remember the other. It's very easy. That's why sometimes we say Hebrew is actually easier than English because of these, because the verbs and the nouns, not always, but oftentimes are related. The tau prefix can do this as well. So the mem prefix and the tau prefix, when you see now, the tau prefix might indicate something else. We'll see that later, especially if it's got like a hith in front of it. That's actually going to be a stem change, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Now the mem can also change a noun into a related noun. So we have uh, mer'ah, the word for pastor, and then mo'ah is a shepherd. I'm sorry, ro'ah is a shepherd, and then ra'ah is to feed or to graze. So notice how all these three words, again, they're related. Um, Now here's two other related words. Yalad is the word to give birth. We see that in Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. A child will be born to us. Is the root word yalad there. Um, and then the related noun, toledoth. You say, well, gee, that doesn't look, but look at the middle three, what we call the triradical, the middle three letters. And you say, well, that's a vav instead of a yod in the beginning. Yes, it lengthened to when it became part of this larger word. And this is that term we're going to see all through Genesis. Actually, 10 times we see this term in Genesis. Uh, my translation says, this is the account of the heavens of the earth, or I think the Old King James might say more correctly, I think, these are the generations of the heavens and the earth. Um, and I think that works nicely. But notice that the two are related. We're going to see a lot. You can't actually give birth to heavens and earth, but yes, you do when you create it. And that's God, in a sense, giving birth to the heavens and the earth. Here's another two terms that are related. Yashav is to sit or to dwell. We saw that in Genesis chapter 13, verse 7, where Abraham gets into the land, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite were, you say, they were sitting, they were dwelling in the land. In other words, Abraham comes into the land that God's going to give him, and it's already occupied. And so he becomes a toshav. A toshav is a sojourner. Exodus chapter 12, verse 45, where we're told that a sojourner or a servant shall not eat of the Passover. And again, notice the triradical. Look for it, and even though that yod lengthened into a vav, into a holek, a home, and so it's Lackland, but you can still recognize it. Now, finally, let me show you one neat place where this takes place. Zechariah chapter 3 and verse 1. This is Zechariah's vision. Then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan, and notice the Hebrew is, and we haven't gotten into definite articles yet, but we're about to introduce that. So it's Ha-Satan, the Satan. Notice that the term Satan, it can be used as a name, but it's almost like a title here. It's the Satan, was standing at his right hand to, and notice that term, lesitnu, to accuse him or to Satan him. Do you see how the verb and the noun are side by side? So the Satan was standing at his right hand to Satan him, or the accuser was standing at his right hand to accuse him. Although I think the best translation, the term Satan really means the enemy. The enemy was standing at his right hand to enemy him, and that's not really good English, but it is good Greek. I'm not Greek. It is good Hebrew. Sorry, Freudian slip there. It is good Hebrew, and and it tells us something about who the Satan is. He is the enemy.